Hi everyone, this is Divided Films, the podcast that talks about movies that audiences and critics do not agree on. I'm JJ, my co-host here is Keith.
Hello.
And with us today, our guest is our friend Dominic Nero. He is a writer and video editor for Esquire.com. How are you, Dom?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Glad you could be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. We all go way back. We all love movies and we're all very opinionated, so...
That's why we started this podcast, basically.
Exactly. So today we are going to be talking about the 2018 horror film Hereditary, directed by Ari Aster and starring Toni Collette. So this movie falls into the category of positive score from critics and a mixed score from audiences. So just off the bat, speculating before we really dive into it, why, just off the top of your heads, do you guys think this is working for critics and maybe not necessarily for audiences? Dom, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I think Hereditary is probably the only movie I've ever seen that, from a filmmaking standpoint, is so flawlessly executed and so, incredibly done. But I will never watch it again.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those movies that's like, that was great, but I'm good after seeing it.
Yeah.
There's a few films that come to mind like that.
I can completely understand why casual audiences would not.
Oh, this movie, in all the best and worst ways, is a nightmare.
Yeah. That's the goal, right? But maybe...
Well, Ari Aster, having rewatched this, and I feel like every time I somehow watch it again in my life, I will appreciate the directing. Ari Aster knows his way around the camera.
Yeah, that definitely, direction is something we definitely want to dive into when we do our discussion here. So just real quick though, the Rotten Tomatoes scores for this movie, 89% with critics and 65% approval with audiences. So we're talking about a 24% difference here. Is that surprising at all, or is that kind of in line with what you when you saw this movie?
I do remember when this movie first came out, it wasn't at 65. It was
Really?
It was a tomato. It was in the 50s, and I do think if this movie, time will be this movie's best friend.
Yeah.
I think that this movie in 20 years, if it's not already a classic in some people's eyes, will just be it'll be like Rosemary's Babies or something like that. I think it's just gonna. Hopefully the tomato and the audience score goes up.
Yeah, I think a lot of horror movies, the most iconic horror movies you can think of, were very divisive at the time.
Really?
You think about say The Exorcist. I mean, people.
Yeah, I was about to.
People were running out of the theater going
How true.
People thought that movie was just plain literally evil. Or I guess a lot of 70s movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And these are movies where it does turn a lot of people off, but they're bold, and I think that's why they stand out.
What are people looking for in a horror movie?
I have a theory about why this movie, about why the audience. If we want to, I'll jump right into it. I think when you see the trailers for this movie, they hail it as this movie's the scariest movie of all time.
Yeah.
So you get a regular person to go see this movie, and they're expecting the scariest movie of all time, and what they get is an intense family drama sprinkled in with cult stuff, and they're going, what the fuck am I watching? And I understand it to an extent, but I blame it on the marketing and horror movies like that. I'm thinking about It Comes at Night. Movies it's just scariest movie of all time, and they're wait, nothing's happening, and what you get more is a psychological thriller.
I think I'll get into the premise in just a second, and I think that is where I think we'll start to see why some audiences are not totally on board. But just quick, the critics' consensus, I'll see if you guys agree with the critic consensus on Rotten Tomatoes. Hereditary uses its classic setup as the framework for a harrowing, uncommonly unsettling horror film whose cold touch lingers long beyond the closing credits. And I think the key word for me is unsettling. This is definitely an
every
unsettling
unword
movie.
And uncomfortable, unsettling.
Yeah.
It's just for all the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, so the premise, let's start with the premise of this movie. This is a premise that, as an audience or critic, you're on board with just going into the movie. And if I had to sum it up, and this is, I think, a harder movie to kind of sum up its premise, I would say, in as brief as possible, this movie's about a family who, how about this? Toni Collette, she plays a mother who, when her mother dies, it sets in motion a series of events and that are tragic and horrific that are happening to her family, and basically her family unwittingly inherits the sacrificial rites to a demonic cult. That is kind of, if I had to
a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, kind of cast the net over what exactly is happening here. But the thing is, I feel like that's not really something I truly understand is happening until towards the end. I understand that, when the grandmother dies, there are things that are happening, and there's some sort of, something is in motion here, but by whom and to what end, I really don't know till towards, the last 20, 30 minutes, and I feel like audiences are a little more impatient when it comes to, what exactly is happening here. And I don't mind that. I kind of sort of being in the dark and kind of being, trying to figure out, what's going on here. But I feel like sometimes audiences might get a little impatient trying to figure out what the plot exactly is.
Well, I found this fun fact, or I guess fun in quotes, but when Ari Aster first went to A24, the script was an intense family drama, just not any horror. He just wanted to make it something like ordinary people, the ice storm in the bedroom, and he knew his only way in the door to get this movie made was to sprinkle in some horror. So he even says this movie's one half a family drama, which was the original plan, and then the other half this horror cult thing. And I could see that. I could see when you go in, people are just going when's this horror gonna happen?
I think a movie like this begs the question what must a film do to succeed as a film? Must it satisfy the audience? So I watched Raging Bull last night, and that movie made me so deeply sad.
Yeah.
Coming out of it, I was like, I don't feel good about life. I mean, it's an incredible movie, but it made me deeply sad and depressed. Yeah. But it's a masterful piece of work.
It's a drama. You go into a drama expecting to maybe have a sad sort of experience.
So people are mad about Hereditary. I mean, I've had this argument a lot that by the end of the film, it drifts into a new area that to viewers, I think it doesn't fulfill the expectations it set out because there is no happy ending. But
except for the little girl, she gets to become Paimon. She gets to become Paimon.
But must a film fulfill the expectations of the audience to be considered good? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. It's kind of you have to try to separate what you want as an invested viewer and what you as an objective sort of maybe not as a critic, but just objectively what you think is a well-crafted story. What you think is I think there definitely is a very you can tell that this was made with a lot of precision, a lot of a lot of hard work and a steady hand, which I really appreciate. I think this movie, in some aspects, reminds me of The Shining.
Yeah.
There's that opening shot of the miniature house, but then when it zooms in on the one room, you see the father walking into that is just the shot in The Shining of the maze.
That's a great transition.
I was really that really sets into motion this kind of theme that's throughout the movie, that they are kind of pawns in this game that are not really in control of themselves, and they reiterate that at one point in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is that is a very classic sort of tragedy. No matter what you do, you can't escape this horrible fate that's been cast onto you.
Right.
Well, you felt something when you watch Raging Bull. You felt something. We can talk about how movies feel it, but that's the goal. You felt probably many different things, and that's the role. I'm just shocked. I think horror movies are, for it is what it is, have gone two different ways. You got The Conjuring, jump scares, people, they're fun, bring a date movies. JJ and I used to live together, JJ was gone for the weekend, I watched A Quiet Place one night, and that was like all the lights are off. I actually had popcorn. And then the next night was Hereditary. And within 20 minutes, I had to put the lights on, and I was legit. This movie scared, like, or at least gave me goosebumps. Like, I felt uncomfortable. But those movies are fun, like Quiet Place.
Yeah, I would say
they're fun.
I would say those are like roller coaster horror movies.
Yes.
You know, like you're screaming out of like some sort of like, you know, joy, I guess, or like, whoa, like, you know, they got me there. This, you know, there's a psychological element, and I don't think people like having their psyche sort of tinkered with.
Yeah, this movie does not belong in a theme park. So I think people like this movie, The Witch, The Babadook. I think, like I expect not everyone to like that, but I don't think it deserves a D+ on Cinema Score.
Yeah,
I think people are just like I don't know, like how can you look at the camera work and go, this is a D+?
Yeah.
Like, that's my...
The acting, I mean, you know, if you want to get into, like, the cast and the acting, I mean, obviously Toni Collette is, like... even people in all these movies, like, you know, she's phenomenal in this movie, but even...
Absolutely phenomenal.
She should have been nominated. She should have won. I mean, I think she gave the strongest performance of the year.
I'm with you right there, and I think a lot of people are.
Just say it. Just fucking say it. Don't you swear at me, you little shit! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Do you understand? All I do is worry and slave and defend you. And all I get back is that fucking face on your face. So full of disdain and resentment and always so annoyed. Well, now your sister is dead.
A mutual friend of ours, who I won't say his name.
We know who you are.
Okay.
We used to live together.
Okay.
And he was always a fan of horror films, and I never was. Because growing up, I was always too afraid to watch them. But then, kind of midway through college, I started getting into horror a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was looking at films like The Exorcist and The Shining, the kind of like, you know, the auteur like horror stuff, and like loving it. And then somewhere along the way, I realized that what he was looking for from horror was completely different than what I was looking for. And I think it was The Babadook. I went to see that, and it like instilled so much terror in me. I still think about that movie.
That movie got to me as well.
Yeah, because it was so terrifying. And I went to our friend, to say, I mean, Babadook is like the best horror movie I think I've seen the best horror movie I've seen made in decades. And he said, "Oh, I saw it. I didn't think that was scary or good at all." And he was watching movies like The Conjuring and shit like that.
Fine movies in their own right.
Sure, but movies about like spooky nuns and stuff that jump out at you, not made by auteur directors, not not marketed as like elevated pieces of art. No. And he is like loving that, and he's always seeking like the scariest movie. And I say, well, you want to go see the scariest movie? Go see, The Babadook. Go see Hereditary. And he goes and watches those films, and they don't speak to him.
Well, I guess sometimes people are more scared by like violence, and there's violence in Hereditary, but I think some people go into a horror movie, like a roller coaster horror movie, like say Saw or something, and they're looking kind of more for like gore and violence and very surface level sort of scares. But to me, what really puts like this movie Hereditary into like the line of like the old 70s horror movies, or like the Babadook, is that you really like get invested in the characters, which is what makes the violence that much more meaningful and tragic. You really feel for this family. You feel for Toni Collette, her son, like the whole family. And these are like really horrible things that are happening to them. And then, you have a movie like Saw, where you just throw in a bunch of like good-looking, 20-something-year-olds who have like no personality, and they're getting like their heads and limbs cut off, and it's like, well, who cares? I mean, I guess maybe it's fun because you're seeing some like gross stuff, but am I scared by that? No, or maybe I'm put off because it's gross imagery, but I don't feel anything from that. I'd rather a movie piss me off than make me feel nothing.
I agree.
I hope it's just like a right place, right time. Like if you go see Saw on a date or with some friends, you'll hopefully have a fun time, even if the movie's bad. Hereditary, I think, is just like I kind of just need to watch this alone and then be alone for like 20. I know,
it sticks with you.
It sticks with you.
If you watch it on a date, you both would probably part ways. Even if it was a perfect match.
She'll swipe left with you like then and there. It is. And I would say the same thing for Raging Bull. Like, this isn't like a movie like, hey, guys, Thanksgiving's over, let's watch a movie. This is a movie to, like... But like Raging Bull and Hereditary, those are movies that get better and better. I'll admit, like, you probably absolutely loved Hereditary when it came out. I really, really liked it. There was something that was preventing me from loving it. And we could talk about that. There's some points... And this is my third time watching it, and it just, I'm getting there. Like, the girl, I'm on a first date with a girl, and she maybe said one thing, I'm like, oh, but I love that flaw. I now love, like, but
I see.
Ari Aster has become a director between this, and he just released Midsommar, which was, I would put them in the same vein of how I feel about these movies. He's become a director, writer who I will watch. I can't wait to see what he does next. Like, he
certainly made a name for himself. Is it, like these movies made quite an impression on people. How can they not?
He will have such an interesting career. And I think, especially because he said Midsommar, I think, is his last horror film.
Yeah, he wants to do like a comedy or like I think
I'm all about that. I can craft a film.
This time watching Hereditary, I'm like, it's so simple what he does with the camera. It's just like it's simple, but I would never think of it.
Yeah, I guess the pacing is one thing with this movie where, again, like, audiences are getting a little turned off because it is slow in the middle, like between the spoilers. Every episode of this podcast will have spoilers because we're talking about this in depth if that's not clear. But between the death of the daughter, which we'll get into, and then I guess the last like 20-30 minutes, it is slow. But it's like a slow burn. It's building. You still have the atmosphere. It's still creepy. You still get some, like, you get those nightmare scenes, and this is I usually am not a fan of, like, nightmare sequences or dream sequences, but this was effective, I thought, and it was at least relevant to what was going on. So the pace, I don't really have a problem with. I feel like, you guys too, I don't have a problem with slow-paced films. But, again, general audiences, I feel like, do.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a good 2 hour... Yeah, it's 2 hour, 5 minute... Like,
he makes long movies.
I never... This is a movie, and granted, it's a slow burn, but it really rewards you at the end.
Yeah.
But I never, like, looked at my watch. Going, like... as opposed to some movies that we watched over the years. It's just... I'm kind of...
Yeah.
And great. Toni Collette, A+. I want to give credit to that kid too.
Peter Wolf, Peter Wolf, Peter and the Wolf.
The Jumanji kid.
I thought he is Wolf. I can't.
Yeah.
Wolf, I think.
Alex, him, they're Big Time Rush. They were part of that band, Big Time Rush. All you Big Time Rushers out there.
Wait, I thought he was the Naked Brothers band.
No.
I think you're right.
Some Nickelodeon sort of like made up.
I'm gonna get comments about this. Like, this was not Big Time Rush. I think you're right. It is Naked Brothers.
Something silly.
But he did an excellent job as well. But Toni Collette, I do believe, and so did Gabriel Byrne. I think I felt more for his.
Do you think they casted him because of his name? Like, you think his name was foreshadow? I'm always looking for. I love foreshadows, so I kind of look for them where they're not even meant to be.
Well, the whole.
So I could. And speaking of which, this movie is filled with foreshadow.
Yeah.
And another thing, it is slowly paced, but it's all building towards something, and that's why I feel it's very calculated. Like, leading up to the daughter's death, there's a lot. I mean, like, there's a shot of Toni Collette cutting tomatoes, and there's another shot of, like, a girl at the party chopping almonds, and it's, like, becoming more obvious what's gonna happen.
That was a scene that, like, made me go, oh, like.
I mean, it becomes more obvious that something's gonna happen, but if you had no idea, you would not expect her head to pop off.
No. If you had no idea this was a horror film and you go into this not, like, knowing nothing, you just think this is like a movie about a dysfunctional family, and then all of a sudden it's like the floor is taken out from under you when that happens. I mean, the second she sticks her head out the window, I knew it was going to happen at that point, but it was still like, no, and then it happens, and to even make that whole sequence more disturbing, perhaps one of the most disturbing shots in any film I've ever seen. Her like head the next morning covered in ants. This is one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. And yeah, I mean, this is like really effective imagery here. Yeah. And I can see how that pisses some people off.
To quote a friend of ours, this movie will ruin your day. Like, but he turned that same friend turned the movie off after that part. He's like, I don't want to watch. He was very unsettled.
Oh yeah,
and I think Ari Aster was like, well, I did my job. Like you.
Yeah, I mean, for people like us who watch a lot of film, you know that there are a few times when you are truly surprised by something in a film.
Yeah.
And this film has maybe like 2 or 3 of those moments.
Yeah, a lot of surprises. I mean, it's like that moment, and then at the end. I mean, at that point in the last 30 minutes, I think everything from when he, like, the son becomes possessed and smashes his nose, everything from then on is just, like, you know, okay, like, you can tell now everything's about to, like, come to a head, like, you know, pun intended, I guess, but, like, you're just kind of, like, you know, at that point, like, okay, here we go, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really afraid, and it's worse than what you could possibly imagine, I think, what happens after that.
Charlie!
I'm along for the ride at that point, but I know that was a serious, like, for not people who found this film just like boring, I didn't like it, but a serious criticism of the film was like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say,
because it does take a sharp left turn into like what the fucksville. Like,
yeah, I think if you, in criticism of this film, like, it's hard to me. It's really hard to criticize the first 2 acts of this film, because to me they're like perfectly executed. I'm
not going to debate you, but there's one flaw, but we can get into that. But
I think the 3rd act of the film is when it walks into a territory that you either have to just buy in or get out, because there is no, like, there's no reason at that point. I mean, once she becomes like possessed, it just ventures into like Horrorville, and at that point he's just basically doing like silly like horror bits. Like,
well, some people in some of the comments were like, I was laughing. Like I imagine you're just seeing
funny.
Well, like I could see. Like, I think when Toni Collette's like crawling in the air, I could see someone. I could see like a teenager behind me at the theater. Oh yeah,
because I was also terrified.
It's
a good way to relieve tension.
My therapist says it's my coping mechanism.
And I noticed this on this rewatch, and this is just maybe I didn't know that the teacher was part of the cult, and I'm like,
he was.
Yeah. Oh.
Wait. Oh,
the teacher who's disturbed when he's smashing his nose. Who's like?
The teacher before, like the bigger guy, the Santa shaved guy. He's bald on top.
He's in the end.
And also maybe that other teacher, because before he enters the class, the teacher does this.
Right.
But I did see the teacher before, I saw his naked body with other naked people. He's one of the naked guys.
I did not notice. I did not want to look at the naked guys at very long, so that's why I did not notice. As soon as you saw someone naked, I was like, ugh, like, because I don't know, it was disturbing.
We can't reason out that. I mean, where the naked people come from, like why all of a sudden they appear. Why doesn't she just kill herself right away? Why is she just like goofing around?
How did she get into the attic?
Yeah, it's just like.
But at that point,
I'm along for that ride.
At that point,
I'm along for that. Like, I'm surprised people. I think this movie does a lot of laying down. Like, Ann Dowd, who was the grieving mother, her friend at the support group. It's setting up for something. Spooky.
Yeah.
It's spending, and then they have the seance scene themselves, and it's kind of scary. And then, like, it's just, to me, it's like laying down kindling, and then the last 20 minutes is just gasoline.
Yeah.
Like, I'm along, like, okay, I'm expecting a fire. Well, the second. Not that big of a fire.
Well, the second, and then speaking of fire, I feel like the second that Gabriel burns, the second he bursts into flames,
and she makes that face.
At that second, it's like, okay, there are no more rules because the movie tricks you earlier on when she tries to burn the book. She starts going on fire, so that's on purpose. The movie deceives you, and I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure there's theories out there and people can like send them, but I don't know why it was the father who burned at the second time and he burst into flames. I have no idea why. But that makes it scarier because again, it was shocking, it was unexpected, and it was terrible. Like, this guy had no chance. And like I said, at that point, I mean, we're talking about like demons and kings of hell. Anything can go, I guess, at that point.
Well, there are things I think in films that you don't want to define, and that's what kind of gives them like that special magic.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tarantino says he'll never explain why Inglourious Bastards is spelled that way. Because if he would, because it's spelled wrong.
Yeah. ERDS or something.
Yeah, and Inglourious is also spelled wrong.
Okay, yeah.
And people ask him about that all the time. He said, "I'll never tell you," and that's just like a magical thing about his work that, like, if you seek to define it, you kind of take the power away from it. Or like The Shining, like when he goes into that ballroom and all of a sudden,
there's like people there,
or the bear that's like.
I bet the bear is the biggest question mark.
Yeah, what is that? But who cares? Like, that's.
I like the famous quote from David Lynch when Mark Kermode, a famous movie critic, is interviewing him about Eraserhead, and he talks about how much he loves it, and he's like trying to find the meaning in this one thing. He's like,
most religious film.
And he's like, could you explain this? And David Lynch goes, no. And
that's great.
I love that.
And I agree.
I get annoyed by movies that try to explain too much about like rules and how this works and how things don't work. It's like, like, just show me, and if there are things that are mysterious or there's no rules at all, that's fine too. Like, I feel like I'm on board with this movie and the crazy things that happened at that point. But I don't know, ambiguity is something that I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like a lot of audiences want answers. I think we're in an age where people are going to be looking up online, like, what happened? Right. Why did this happen?
Oh,
people have theories, but if they don't know for sure.
And then explain.
There's always a video.
I want to get a little bit on a filmmaker's soapbox. Yeah. Please, if you're a YouTuber, do not make any more of these like. Fast and Furious 9 ending explained.
I mean, that explains it.
No, but there's Aladdin explained. It's just like, I think you can let people interpret it on their own. Let people discuss. Let people be wrong or right, or find something new.
I've seen some of those videos. They just explain what you already saw. A lot of times, I don't even like interpret it. It's just like, this character died. It's like, yes, I know.
Yeah. Well, like the end of Blue Velvet when he shoots the guy and he walks in there and he's still standing. You know what I'm talking about? He's dead, but he's standing up. It's like, we'll never know. That doesn't make any sense. No one can. But like, that's what make David Lynch David Lynch.
That was David Lynch's. I don't know what. Like, he was a well-known director by Blue Velvet. I feel like if you go see a David Lynch movie, you should be like, oh, I'm expecting a David Lynch movie. I'll give people. Once again, I'm not for the D+. I'm not for like the. Yeah. I think people were just a little too harsh because they were expecting something else.
Yeah.
Like, any legit criticism of this film, I understand, but this was Ari Aster's first movie, and they just did not know what to expect.
Right, and that's great.
And if we're going along with the roller coaster theme, you're kind of in the dark.
Yeah.
And you're going along for the ride.
That's enough. What? No. Listen, when I did this earlier, this manifested on the page. I saw it. Draw it some more. What is it? It's Charlie. Did you finish Charlie? Did you want to draw some more? You can keep going. Stop it. We need to keep our fingers touching.
You are scary.
No, I am not. Peter, listen.
Stop it.
Listen to me. There is no need to be scared. This is your sister.
I like the fact that it wasn't Satan. I like that. I like that he can't. Like,
it was a demon, a king of hell.
I like that he did research.
Demon.
I like that he I don't know like the research. I don't know the like.
I don't need to like what is Payman's deal? Like what happens? But like.
Well, I think if it was Satan, I would have been like, oh, this is basically Rosemary's Baby.
Well, in The Exorcist, it's not the devil either. It's I think like Pazuzu or something.
Right. Pazuzu.
Or / I think Captain Howdy, which is like I think in The Exorcist, like when the daughter says like, oh, like my friend Captain Howdy, which is actually Pazuzu, like I guess trying to
I didn't know
trick her or something. Yeah.
Captain
I think
Howdy.
Not the mistake, because you have to sell a movie, but this movie is only a horror movie in the last 20 minutes. This is a psychological family drama. And if you sold it as that, people would have been like, I think this movie would have I think it would have been just more acclaimed by audiences and Oscars and whatnot. It just this movie did very actually for 10 million. It made 80 million.
Yeah,
and like I'm so like.
Yeah,
I think Midsommar also made that. I haven't done I didn't look at that, but I'm really happy for this person's Ari Aster's career.
Yeah,
I think any sort of mixed horror with any sort of genre.
A problem. How do you define the genre?
Yeah, exactly. Because I like mixing like horror and comedy, or in this case, it's like a horror domestic drama. I like all of that, but again, like sometimes audiences want to have a better idea of what they're in for, and if you're getting like a scene where a girl's head is getting cut off by a telephone pole, followed by a very compelling scene of a mother and son arguing over dinner,
that scene alone she should have been nominated.
So
that is like probably the most compelling scene in the movie, and that's again like the selling point. Like you totally buy into this family dynamic, and then for the rest of the movie, when even more horrible things happen to you, it's just even more devastating.
But that dinner scene alone. Like you read some of the audience reviews and it's just terrible, great movie, best horror movie ever. Seriously, at least some people were like, I'll read this one review. Hereditary got some really low scores everywhere because people went into the movie expecting another Paranormal Activity or another fucking Annabelle movie. A24 doesn't do movies like that. I think if it's all expectations. But if you were to look at that dinner scene, I don't know how you can rate this movie like. A D+.
Yeah, I mean, I try to even separate, like, if a movie is something I don't personally like, but I can at least say, like, I think that was well done, or I think other people will like this, it's just not something that's up my alley. I think sometimes audiences don't differentiate that, or even critics don't really differentiate that either sometimes.
Well, speaking of rating, I'm going to pull something up for you guys. I have a bone to pick with Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
So, since I write for Esquire.com, I recently found out that my writing about film is on Rotten Tomatoes, which I had no idea.
Oh,
it gets
really?
put into reviews?
Yeah.
Is that a review of what movie that you?
So look, I'm a critic, but my reviews do not count towards the tomato meter. I'm not a tomato meter approved critic. Sorry. But they have been
We're going to have to ask you to leave.
These are all my film reviews, and they've been taking them and plugging them into their database or whatever.
Wow.
So if you see here, Hereditary, they took a piece of my review. I had nothing to do with this. I say Hereditary is quite the opposite of fun. It seeks only to burden the audience, setting us up to hurt from the very start.
And they interpreted that as a negative review?
Yeah, but like that's taking my review like deeply out of context, because what I wrote about the film was that it is what we're talking about here, about how it challenges what a horror film even is. And I would by no means call this a bad movie. They interpreted my review as an 89% on the tomato meter, but they gave it a rotten from me.
Oh, so they think you're giving this movie a rotten.
Yeah. But they also interpreted it as 89%, which is not rotten.
That is very confusing.
So how this website operates is...
We will do it, like, we can go
like
on. We can talk about, like, a 2-hour conversation about Rotten Tomatoes.
We're using this as kind of like a loose guideline for... just trying to figure out, like, what movies have this sort of
And I do notice, Rotten Tomatoes is a good, there is a difference, there are people that love Hereditary, and there's people that just get nothing out of it.
There's no argument there. People are conflicted about this.
But, if a 3.3 out of 5, which is, like, middle down the road, that is considered a positive review.
Yeah.
I always think, like, if it's a good just gateway drug into our conversation.
Yeah.
That's how I think of this.
We're not even sticking strictly to this, like, has to be fresh with one and wrong with the other. Sure. This is technically fresh with both, but it's like a certified, like, almost 90% with critics and, like, like a 60. Like, there's quite a bit of a difference anyway. So, it still raises a worthy of discussion.
Right. But you must concede that the way Rotten Tomatoes is kind of influencing the film discourse is extremely strange.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like, which it's like basically two sides of a coin. Like, is it fresh or rotten?
Yeah.
According to what you wrote. And a lot of times people write mixed reviews. Like,
right.
You feel kind of in the middle of the road about it. But then you have to pick a side.
Yeah, sometimes it's not even a review. Sometimes it's film criticism. That's just kind of writing about film. Not saying whether it's fresh or rotten.
Well,
It's just writing about film.
I think the one point you can take is just see the movie and have your own opinion about it. Like I love the movie Under the Silver Lake, and that movie it's 50 something by critics and 50 something by audiences.
Interesting.
And it's one of my favorites of the 2019. I always think it started out with, like, you know, Rotten Tomatoes started out. It's good to know, like, I don't want to see a movie like Annabelle, the creation of the doll, the nun. I don't want to, like, you know, if people are saying this movie's bad, I don't want to pay to see it. And if people are saying this movie's good, I would love to see it. I just think I think you're right. I think the word, it's not good or bad, it's strange. The level of discourse.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I think the idea of Rotten Tomatoes grew beyond the intentions. Like,
I agree.
It grew beyond.
Yeah.
But it's always, you know, I never really had like an app, like, except for like a movie here and there, I never really had like an app. I know what movies I'm going to see. I think,
if anything, I'm more interested in movies that I don't see what the critical score is or something
that's the
like that.
best. When you don't know if it's good or bad, you just go.
Yeah.
I love that.
if it's booed at con, I'm going to go see it. Like, I'm more interested in a movie that's booed at con as opposed to why. So, like, I understand a lot of people just don't have the taste for Hereditary.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day.
Which is fine. Not every movie has to be like a universally loved movie. But again, like, you know, it seems to have gotten some reaction of everyone, and it's better for a movie to evoke something than nothing. And it's not going to be a movie that fades into obscurity.
I think it'll stand the test.
I think it'll stand the test of time, and it'll just get better if people, maybe every 10 years they decide to rewatch it, because I've seen it twice in like the past 6 months, and I'm like, I don't want to be sad anymore.
I would argue that it's the best film of 2018.
Oh, okay.
And I think future generations will recognize it as such. Because what's its competition? Green Book?
Oh, well, okay. What?
They both end the same way. They both end the same way. Green Book, Mahershala Ali's doing the same thing with the piano wire.
What other movies were nominated? Like, let me look this up real quick.
No, I think to put it, Hereditary belongs in the category of like The Witch, The Babadook. It Comes at Night, where it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it's critically acclaimed, and people are expecting a horror movie, and what you're getting is an auteur vision, intense drama. With horror elements, and people end up either laughing at the silly bits and just going like, where's the clown coming out? Where's the jump scares? And that, if we want to go into a discussion of horror, I think jump scares, are people so used to that they expect it and they need it? Because this movie doesn't offer any of that, but like it offers something completely new.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, jump scares, again, it's like kind of like a shallow, cheap trick. Like, anyone can do a jump scare, and again, if that's what you want, like, fine. Sure. But like I said, you get the same sort of thrills from like riding a roller coaster. You know, it's if that's what you want, popcorn movie, summertime movie, like just go see this crazy movie, fine. But if you want a little more food for thought, then I think this is up your alley. So I think I was just trying to look up quickly what the other movies that were nominated last year. I mean, you had movies like like Roma, A Star Is Born. Green Book, The Favorite, Black Klansman, Black Panther, Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, would you say that Hereditary is superior to those movies?
I would switch out one of those movies, and you guys can put in what your movie that you would switch out. But Toni Collette should have been nominated.
Yeah,
I agree.
Ari Aster maybe would have been either 5 and 6, but at least the editing on that movie is phenomenal.
Yeah,
way better than Bohemian Rhapsody.
Design.
I'm gonna call that out because Bohemian Rhapsody.
How do you really?
But Toni Collette should have been nominated. The movie, it is a phenomenal movie. But
it wasn't nominated for anything. And again, how many?
Insane.
If you look back in the history of the Academy Awards, I mean, how many movies? That one best film that faded into obscurity. It's just it's clearly time is the best test for like what is actually significant.
I will say the one criticism that I had, and I've now accepted it as part of the ride. But when I first saw it, the party I know you have to get from A to Z.
Yeah.
Like she has to have the allergy and get her head. But it's like you got to take your sister to this party. No, like don't bring the sister, and everyone's cutting nuts up. I'm like, I've never seen a party where people are doing that, but the shot of the nuts, I'm like, something's gonna happen.
If I had to be a little nitpicky, I'd say the nut allergy was the least subtle thing. It's like, okay, like as soon as they say like there's no nuts in that, right? It's like, okay, it's a little play and.
But I didn't throw my hands up in the air going, I'm out. It was just, I'm smiling right now as I say it, and it's what made me go like, I really, really like this movie. Mm-hmm. But I do think you get a better appreciation the more you see it, and you're just along for the ride at that part. So brother wants to get high, sister comes along, eats some cake with nuts in it. You like gotta get from A to Z somewhere.
How brutal is that though? I mean, you talk about like movies like jump scare movies where people get hacked up or something. This, I feel like getting your head cut up by a telephone pole from being in a car going 100 miles per hour. That is like one of those violent kind of deaths I've ever seen. So this movie has it all, I'd say. Okay, so let's just to conclude, let's say I think we're going to side more with the critics on this, but these percentages, they're a bit arbitrary again. How sometimes one reviews assign to fresh or rotten. So if you had to just give your own personal percentage, where your tomato meter would be, what percentage would you give this movie?
I mean, I love this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd like a 96 or something.
Okay, yeah, mid-90s sort of approval rating. Okay, Dom, Keith.
I would. When I first saw the movie, I would probably give it an 89, and now I'd probably give it like a 91, 92, and it's probably going to get higher. And I like to think. I remember the audience score being in the 50s, and now it's at a 65. I like to think that's going to get higher over time, too.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll all reconvene in 10 years to talk about the historical effect of Hereditary.
Exactly, and I think I'm in agreement with you guys. I'd probably give this somewhere like, like a 93 or 94%. I mean, the only minus points, I guess, is not a lot of rewatchability factor, but then that's not really the point, so I don't know if I should even penalize it for that. Again, this is just, these percentages are arbitrary, just how you feel, basically.
Yeah.
We feel strong about this movie, so, it's a shame that other audiences, at least right away, don't, but that is our hope for this movie, that over time. Yeah.
I guess the lesson to be learned is, if you hear it's the best horror movie of all time, adjust your expectations. Sure. Don't go in expecting, actual horror movie, just do more research on it.
Going with no expectations.
That's a good point.
That's what really caught us off guard. And for me, I feel like I've had the best movie experiences in general when I have no expectations at all.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, Dom, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We are. I must officially decree we are siding with the critics on Hereditary.
If we did not, I would cut my own head off with piano wire.
Stay tuned for the after effect.
Oh yes.
We haven't made any clicking noise.
I tried to block that scene out of my mind. So thank you for reminding me of that. Dom, thanks a lot for coming on.
Hail Payman.
Hail Payman, and join us next time, guys, for another episode of Divided Films. Thanks a lot.